Alright, so this is going to be kind of a very rough intro to the channel. I don't want to make this the main one because this is a partner channel. I'm not going to be doing this alone, and I want to kind of do one together where we're both going into our areas of expertise and why we decided to partner together. But I wanted to get a video up on this channel, being that we decided to make it and get it going. I want to get something up here just to get it started, and I figured this would be a good way to start, being that doesn't require a lot of thought for me to go into this video, and it's something I can get up quick. I filmed a topic on this for a previous channel quite a while back, and it's somewhat related. And also, I had somebody ask a question in the Discord forum that me and the other partner use quite regularly. He runs it, and it's relevant to the topic, so I figured I could combine them all into a little quick intro video that kind of shows a little bit of my area of expertise for this channel. To start it off, I'm a strongman competitor, kind of an amateur strongman. Only done a few competitions that are local ones, but placed second in men's heavyweight in my last one, and first in the Farmers Walk events, second through fourth in the other events. But I am a decent competitor, decent strengths, pretty weak on presses, but otherwise overall, doing all right with it, and also aiming to compete in a strict curl competition pretty soon. Not going to put a deadline on it yet, but I mean, I've been saying within the next 12 months for like 6 months now, but I might push that another couple months. I would say about 6 months from now, but we'll see. I want to go for that world record. I've hit 225 in the gym as my max before, but that's just a gym number. It doesn't really matter in the end. I want to get a number up there on the board in competition, and being that it's the closest thing I have to any sort of real world record in any of my lifts, I figured what a great way to, sort of get my name out there in the strength world. My main interest is still strongman overall. It's probably what I'll be more interested in for the rest of my life as a competitor. And I've been training for it seriously for just strongman for like 6 years now. When I first got into lifting, it was more for bodybuilding, but I did follow a lot of strongman competitors. It's just my interest lied more in physique at the time. But getting to this topic, a video topic I filmed before was on the agonizing the adrenergic system, how that plays into strength sports, and also what the question was in this Discord was, what is my training program? And honestly, that's a hard thing for me to answer, my training program, because my background, I have a bachelor's of science in kinesiology from UW-Madison, and I also, being that I've been in this world for so long, like this is going on 8 years now, me training, most of it, pretty much all of it, being pretty damn serious, to be honest. Like I've right off the bat jumped into this and went head over heels overboard, and maybe to a little bit of my own detriment, but I bounced back and figured a good middle ground with this sport. But yeah, I've been at it for a while, so I don't really have to put a ton of pre-planning into my programs to maybe the extreme extent that a lot of rookies do, as well as I've never really felt the need to follow a strict program that's organized by someone else. It's something where I definitely want to be able to at least go off my body feel a little bit, and I do know my body pretty well, and then obviously I know training and the physiology and the actual mechanisms of training well enough where I feel like workout to workout I can make adjustments, swap out lifts, stuff like that. And so how I can go about at least giving you guys some idea of what goes into my thoughts for training, I wanted to talk about what goes into like the general principles you should look for in strength focused training programs, not size focused, but strength focused training programs, and how you can go about designing them yourself. So this is kind of the general principles, and that really does tie in a lot to the adrenergic system too. With strength sports, a lot of what comes into play outside of just strength and muscle size and muscle endurance is going to be, your actual ability to recruit muscle fibers. And it's not to say, everyone isn't capable of recruiting all of them. It's your ability to recruit motor units more rapidly, or at once, or more motor units at once. You're recruiting them more rapidly. By the way, sorry for the times I misspeak a little. I'm not going to film this more than once. I wanted to get this up quick, so I'm just filming it on my phone, and not going to do any editing. I just want to throw it up there. So if you hear me stumble on my words, sorry. it is what it is. Deal with it. Um, I'll try and get better over time. But yeah, so this principle of the adrenergic system coming into play, what it boils down to is your CNS and CNS overload. And so when you're training for strength sports, one of the biggest things that comes into play is training frequency. So you're going to be at close to your max weights for most of your training sessions. And that's not to say you're going for 1 rep maxes every session, but you're close to that 1 rep max a lot more of the time with your training, whether you're going for 3 to 5 reps in your sets, or maybe you're doing some like pyramid sets. There's a good portion of your training that is spent close to that, more so than if you were focused on volume and hypertrophy. And as a result, one of the things you kind of got to be a little more weary of and also kind of playing around is your CNS and CNS fatigue. And also overloading it and trying to build some better ability to kind of overcompensate for CNS fatigue. And also, one of the things you're working on, especially early on in your training, is actually improving that neuromuscular efficiency. So that also includes actual morphological changes, so growth of nervous tissue, but that's a pretty minimal effect. Maybe early on in your rookie years of training, it's having some noteworthy effects, but for the most part, what you're getting is, improved motor patterns, motor unit recruitment. You're getting just kind of more used to it. It's getting programmed into your brain. And that actually plays a big role. Like when you're not used to a movement, even now, when I try a new movement out, even if it is pretty comparable to other things I do, like it takes a while of doing it to be at my max strength with that lift without having like actually built any strength on it. All I'm doing is, getting used to the actual feel of the movement itself. And so with strength training, how you can kind of go about dealing with this is, you want to be doing high frequency as much as possible, but you got to be gauging it based off of how you feel physically day to day. And that is a little difficult. You get used to it over time, but when you're feeling significantly drained daily for weeks on end, and you've been pounding pre-workout before your workout, cut back. Like it's time to reel back on the training, do a deload week, cut out the stimulants, and let your CNS kind of recover a bit. However, if you're feeling fine, push it. Go for those heavier sets, do lower volume, and gauge it that way. You got to go a little bit based off body feel, but still try and spend the majority of your workouts at this higher weight, lower volume sort of stimuli, and just gauge it when you've been going for too long. That's when you kind of got to reel back. It's going to be very individual, especially when you bring into play things like PEDs. Whether or not you're on them plays a huge role in how long you can kind of go about pushing your CNS, and also your actual ability to recruit motor units, and your neuromuscular efficiency is aided quite significantly by things like DHT derivatives. DHT, the primary male sex hormone, or I should say testosterone is the primary male sex hormone. DHT is the secondary male sex hormone that's like primarily responsible for the development of all those secondary sex characteristics. It is it is something your body breaks down testosterone into DHT, and you'll have quite a noteworthy amount. So you could arguably say, and you do hear people say, like testosterone is what's responsible for male development, but in the end, a lot of these physical developments, including that neuromuscular efficiency, stems down to things primarily driven by androgenic signaling, which is way more pronounced by DHT. So DHT derivatives will facilitate this to quite an extreme degree. And then the other thing that I talked about in my video before that facilitates this quite a bit is stimulants. And what you see in the strength world and in the bodybuilding world quite a bit, but not for the same reasons used, is beta-2 agonists. And so there are certainly other things that people deploy. None of them certainly are something you could view as safe. Lots of people use things like amphetamines, which are kind of in a similar nature. Obviously more risky in the addictive sense, maybe arguably physiologically at the same dose as being used for the same pronounced effect. They're safer in the moment, the way people are going about deploying them, but I think in the long run, both ways to go about them are dangerous. But I'll go more into the beta 2 agonist side because I have some past experience with that, and then also it's something I'm very familiar with the pharmacology of, and um, I think it has more relevancy in sport. So the adrenergic system is comprised of the beta and alpha adrenergic receptors. And with the beta receptors, the primary one that comes into play with sports is the beta 2 receptor, at least in these contexts with performance enhancement. So agonizing the beta 2 receptor is responsible for, as well as just agonizing of the adrenergic system, it's kind of responsible for activating that fight or flight response. And it is causing the release of adrenaline and noradrenaline, um, norepinephrine and epinephrine. And it, as a result, does things like, at lower doses, it can dilate blood vessels. At higher concentrations, higher doses, it's going to be vasoconstrictive, but then it's going to raise heart rate, it's going to raise blood pressure, it's going to also do things like increase dopaminergic signaling, it's going to increase muscle contractility for a variety of reasons outside of just the increased dopaminergic signaling. There's a lot of other things that are stimulatory neurotransmitters that are mildly facilitated through the use of these things, or the release of is facilitated through the use of these things. It varies drug to drug, but there's certainly other things besides dopamine and epinephrine and norepinephrine that come into play. Outside of that, this increased neuromuscular efficiency is also aided greatly just by the increased mental presence, I guess would be a good way to put it. That neurological drive, that like, I need to get shit done, fight or flight mental state. Somewhat anxiety ridden, somewhat like dominance ridden. I don't know how to put it, besides the feeling of needing to accomplish something, whether that be fear based or whether that be like ego based reactions. And it certainly helps to be in a mindset, whether that be facilitated through PEDs or just facilitated through, being a little bit more disciplined and able to put yourself in certain mindsets to lift heavier weights. You'll hear people famous for phrases like "it's a mindset," like Eric Bugenhagen, one of my favorite other lifters. Definitely recommend going and following him. The guy's a complete nutcase. I love him, but it really is like getting yourself into that psychotic mindset before, especially like 1 rep max lifts, does a lot. And that's why you'll also see people using things like smelling salts, which that's just ammonia gas they're inhaling. Like sometimes it's they're putting water on ammonia smelling salts and it's the gas is coming off they're inhaling. Sometimes it is what I've used in the past. It's the stuff paramedics use, where it's a little glass container inside of a paper cloth type material that you crush and it releases ammonia gas, and it's a small amount and it's meant to rouse unconscious individuals. You see it used a lot in boxing as well as in the NFL, but you'll see people use them before their lifts, and that's how I've deployed them, primarily just before like 1 rep max deadlifts in the past, which I've gotten 7-10 pounds raw deadlift in the past, so I'm not going to pretend it's all on that, but I will say, like, don't think I would have hit that without it. It was one of those things where like being in that mindset makes you almost angry at the weight and feel the need to throw it in the air more so than just wanting to work out for the sake of working out. And so this does really come into play quite a bit. You got to really keep an eye on your CNS, try and gauge where it's at, but primarily try and train in those low rep ranges, do compound movements, give muscle groups about 48 hours of rest at the very least before training them hard again. That's not to say take 48 hours off between every training session. I mean, unless you're doing full body hard workouts every day, then by all means do that. But it's just to say, don't, hit back and then hit back again hard the next day. Give yourself at least 48 hours between training the same muscle groups. Takes about that long to recover in ideal states for naturals, maybe a little less for people utilizing performance enhancing drugs. But even still, I would say most of the people tend to train with that in mind either way. I've certainly met the nutcases that go hard on full body every day, and at least in my opinion, I think it's a little bit to their detriment, but arguably, at the very least, there's some premise to say that they need less recovery time and wouldn't need those 48 hours and could get by with a fair bit less. And with that, the main thing that this boils down to for a strength accrual is frequency. Frequency training those heavy sets. The more you do it, the more you adapt to that sort of thing, the better. And I guess that's kind of how I want to end this, outside of just talking a little bit more about the channel. This is going to be a joint project, as I mentioned before. Me and the partner are coming into this from other ends. I'm a strength competitor, or strength sport competitor, primarily in strongman. I'm going to be dipping my toes into other things, and have had my interest in pharmacology, biology, physiology, everything in that sort of realm for quite a while because of my personal interests, and always had a mild interest in nootropics. Not something that, cognitive enhancement isn't my biggest focus, but something that I've always had some interest in nonetheless. And also, there is certainly some nootropics that have performance enhancing value, and that's always something that's intrigued me, and I've, wanted to research it for that reason too in the past, and tried to keep up to date for that reason. And the partner is coming in from the other end. He's going to have been primarily versed in the nootropic side, and I've been talking with him for quite a long time on this server. I trust his pharmacological knowledge. I'm someone that's pretty cocky about my own knowledge and tend not to trust other people online, but he's someone that has done a good job, demonstrating he's got a good basis in this. And I think that's why him and I are, wanting to do this channel. We saw we kind of complement each other's strengths and weaknesses in these areas. He's coming in from the complete opposite end, having been very versed in nootropics, and getting into lifting now and supplementation, and wanting to at least learn about the physiology and pharmacology of the performance enhancing side. I don't think he's ever going to go as deep into the realm I did, but it's something that I think piques everyone's interest that has a science mind and gets into these things, and he's definitely got a brilliant scientific mind. I'll give him that. So I'll end it there. This is going to be the first video for the channel. Just wanted to get something up there, but hope you guys liked a very rough starter, and hope the video quality turns out okay. I only did one test run with this, so we'll see. Thanks.